Welcome to the Conversion Disorder Podcast. I'm Rob.
And I'm Scott. This is all about the hidden costs of acquisition marketing. This week on Conversion Disorder, we are talking about Leadgen once again. And this time we wanted to go through, assuming that you've got some idea of your traffic, you know what you want to do, right? But how do you build it, right? What are some of the basic foundational decisions at the beginning that you will encounter, you absolutely will encounter, whether you realize it or not. So we want to talk through some of those. All right. So let's start with building a Leadgen and O&O. How do you approach buyers? How about that, right? I think that's the first thing. Yeah. Every category, every vertical. How do you think about buyers?
And not only how do you think about buyers, but how are you going to get them when you don't have traffic? Or how do you get them when you don't currently have traffic you can take credit for because you're running, someone else's offer. So first thing is, and there's a lot of easier and harder ways to figure this out, but the easiest way I've always found it, especially with industries that are phone based, is the DBA list for marketing partners or whoever is listed on the actual intake. So when you're consenting to be contacted, that's a list of people that most likely, I'm not going to say always, but most likely are paying for the lead so that they can actually market to it. That could be, long forms, short forms, co-reg. It can be whatever, but that's phone based. Email is kind of the same thing, except it's not nearly as easy because they're not going to list it right there, but sometimes they will. But the easiest way to figure that out then is go create a Gmail account, just put it in, go through the flow like you normally would, and then just look at who emails you and look at where that is. Because whether or not they are internal based on the initial lead, or they were sold the lead, or they were given the lead, or whatever it is, they think that you are a target, which means that they think that you are the person that fits what they are trying to do. So therefore, the reverse is also true. So when you start to look at those, it's a great way to see what's working, what isn't, because at the end of the day, if you're already spending money on it, you most likely know your metrics at least good enough to know what's profitable and not. And if they're still there, they're good enough to at least approach. But it's also about what do you have? Do you have, a lot of search traffic? Do you have a lot of email? Some of them don't want email. Other ones don't want search. Some of them don't want just brand bidding on search, but they want other types. Like there's a lot of criteria for each. So you always need to know what you have. But also when you don't own it, you don't really know what you have. So you really just have the intent and you use that to kind of push through.
Right. And if you do actually have traffic, another strategy that's always worked for me is you can go to the search feeds, you can go to the ad networks, and then just drive traffic to that topic. And even if you're not, so you might have an ideal buyer in mind, but you need to drive traffic to that topic to somebody reputable, right? To somebody with a brand and a name, and then show that you can get that traffic. It's more important that you're steady than you're large, right? If you drop 80,000 every once a month, right, in one huge drop, and then you come back, that's not impressive. Actually, they hate that. What they're looking for is steady traffic. 100 leads a day is much better than 80,000 leads in a single day and then just months of static. It's much better if you can do 100 leads a day, steady, predictable, where the quality that comes back is consistently good, right? Go for 3 months if you can, especially depending on the vertical, right? It's jobs doesn't care about 3 months. Education absolutely cares about 3 months, right?
Yep.
Let the vertical guide you, and then drive that traffic steadily, and then go report to the buyer that you're chasing, hey, I've been sending traffic to you or to your competitor at a steady pace of 100 up until 500 every single day for the last 3 months, and here's the pricing I'm getting. And they've kept us because the quality is good. You just make that assertion, right? And then, but you should test us, because then you can give us better feedback, because I'm going through an ad network. I go through, Google, and they don't tell me squat, right, about quality. I would love to figure out what that is. And of course, hopefully get a better price. And you, Mr. Aggregator, gets to disintermediate Google with their huge, margin, and we're the network who always takes a cut as well, right? That strategy works extremely well.
Oh, yeah. Oh, no question. And so let me expand on that a little bit more as well. Let's say that you're in an industry where you actually can produce leads somewhat quick, but you're fresh to it. So you found something, it's working, and let's say you can get 500 consistent leads a day, or let's even just say 200, right? So let's say 200. it's much better to have a buyer that says, listen, we can't really evaluate quality until at least 20 leads a day over a week or whatever it is. Awesome. The problem is too many people will see that and go, so 20 leads a day, that's what I need with these guys. Okay, cool. I'm going to treat them as not a serious buyer because that's not a lot of leads. And you're like, no, you don't understand. That is what makes them a serious buyer. Like exactly. If it's not because, they don't trust me upstream, so I have a really bad cap, it's about quality. So when you have that kind of feedback or response, it's like, you only want 20 a day? No problem. For how long? I want to make sure we have a test so that you know and I know where let's say the point of let's evaluate what actually happened. And that could be a number of leads. That could be a duration. It could be both. A lot of these guys, it's both. So if you have 100 leads a day and one person is telling you they need 20 a day for 2 weeks, right? Don't just be like, I have more where this came from. Go find 2 or 3 other guys and split them. And then you're going to start to notice that even while random, one of them is going to outperform the other one. It might not be a lot or it might be, but they're going to do it consistently. And you're going to start to see that certain people sell really well with other buyers and certain people don't. And then once you figure that out, it's like, oh, well, I've got 20 a day. It's like, but now I can send you the 20 that makes a difference. And then a week later, they're like, how about 50 a day now? And by the way, we'll bump you 20% because you're quality. So like, you just need to be able to fit the criteria so that both of you understand this is what I say I have. This is what you say you have. Now let's put what we both say we have into a test where we can actually verify we both have it and see if it works together. That is the most logical way forward that I don't know why more people don't do, but it's very simplistic to me because it makes sense and everyone wins.
But you raise a great point, right? Because I think most people start as publishers or brokers and they are not really targeting. They're just like national blanket, right? Here's all of it. But realize that depending on the vertical, right? Some people care a lot about states. Some people care a lot about demographics. They care about certain things that you may not be as aware of. And you need to start figuring out a way to become aware of that, right? So geo is relatively very easy. You could always put a question right before you route to the buyer on a jump page, right? And use that as a way to ask about a thing that's important to your vertical, right? Like state, like credit, like something. Don't do too many because right now you're not really doing the qualifying rounds. You're not getting a benefit from that qualification, but do something, right, to start to become aware. Also, Rob, you raised a great point that, of course, obviously, are always lots of buyers in various spaces, and you don't know which one is actually perfect. You might have an ideal, right, that you want to work with. It doesn't mean that's actually the right buyer for your traffic type, and you'll learn a lot of that as you go along. And so 2 things come up. Some verticals will have aggregators. So auto insurance is a classic, where there's a bunch of folks who have really good quality models, and they have good relationships with hard to access brands, and they are happy to take their cut, but give you access, right, to a set of those brands, and they will actually give you good quality feedback. So if there are aggregators, as a general rule, work with them first because they will tell you, hey, give me more traffic. It seems to be really good for my subprime, my prime, my folks in certain states, right? They will start giving you the early version of that feedback, which is really great. And it doesn't hurt your reputation with the brands directly because you are learning and the aggregators are helping you get better. So that's a really good one. Be aware though, because some of the aggregators get very, they want exclusivity, right? Is the only way to all this stuff. So you make your own decisions. This is your business, right? And of course, again, there are lots of buyers. So there's the concept of ping trees, ping post, right? It's called various things, but basically you are running a mini auction. There's lots of lead distribution systems out there that will help you make that decision. And based on rules that you set, based on what they pay, et cetera, it will route traffic. And this is a way to make sure that you're only sending traffic to the folks who are bidding well, and or you can in those systems you can often prioritize a new relationship, et cetera. So we won't get into that too much. And then the big brother or the little brother of the ping tree, the pre-ping, right? Meaning that at the beginning of your flow, after they've just come in and you've gotten 2 or 3 pieces of information on the user, pass that information in early, get an early bid, right, from the various buyers in the tree. And this gives you an idea of how you might want to skew the routing later down the line. Rob, this is one of your favorite topics, though. There are certain things to be aware of in engaging with pre-ping and ping tree. I'll just leave it.
Yeah. So pre-pings and ping trees are always interesting because you're basically giving them the lead and saying, let me know what you think. And P.S. if you sell it, awesome. Just let me know how much I get. And that's amazing until you figure out you're not the one that gets to decide whether or not it's sold, because the majority of these guys don't have minimum bids. So you end up giving them enough. And then the fun part is they'll also say, oh, the pre-ping requires all the fields as the post. And also don't use MD5s because we need to make sure the data is valid. And you're just like, so you literally just want the whole lead to take it. Awesome. This is awesome.
That happens.
Oh, all the time. Literally all the time. So with a lot of these guys, they'll do a bunch of stuff on pre-pings that I know is not valid or is not warranted for the service. Like there are services that has nothing to do with credit that ask for credit score. And I'm like, this makes no sense, but I'm sure your subsidiary buyers love it. So it's like with a lot of the information and a lot of the data you have with aggregators, there are pluses and minuses. Here's a plus and minus example. If you have, let's call it bad quality or not as good quality because you're starting, you haven't refined, you haven't done anything yet, you might be spread over multiple buyers through the aggregator. So instead of getting hard paused, they might just downrate you and say, listen, the quality's not as good. If it gets better, we could revisit payouts. But also like, we only got 3 of your leads and this doesn't make sense. And then they're sitting there going, but I sent you 90. And the aggregator's like, hold on, relax. You sent us 90. So it's the differences there. But here's the other thing. Each buyer has their own stuff. They have their own criteria, their own filters, everything else. And only about 90% of those do get told to the aggregator. Yeah. They're still going to be on the back saying like, we saw this guy before. We really don't want him and blah, blah, blah. Some of them will also, depending on the lead distribution system, and this is one of my personal favorites when I optimize people's trees, is that they don't recognize that doing a ping post or doing a ping tree call puts a mutex on the email. So now when the other guy queries in and goes, hey, I have this person and they're really interested in your services, they go, don't care. This guy had him first. And you're like, but I would have sold it for $2. And then they come back and they're like, well, I froze it at 10. So, and then the 2 guy gets failed out because it's a dupe. All the buyers get failed out because it's a dupe. And remember, the other buyers that are about to buy from these guys could have been that guy's buyers too. And I would have gotten more from him and they would have gotten less. But technology does this in a lot of different places. So you need to know how stuff works.
Right. And now that you have an idea that this can happen, think about that when you are structuring your testing. This is incredibly, incredibly important. Actually, before we get to that, there's a related question of, do I just do all the monetization methods at once at the beginning, or do I start one at a time? Meaning, let's say, for example, I buy traffic on Meta. I'm going to drive to an aggregator. Do I just do the aggregator? Do I mix in the aggregator with some buyers? Strong advice. Take it as a new business, as a new investment. And the best way to get clear signal, especially when you're new, is to do things one at a time. It's going to be frustrating in the sense that there's more money on the table. You know that there's more ways to get profitable. But there are folks who just get profitable from literally Meta right to aggregator. That actually can work just fine. There's depth right in every single one of those lanes. It's a matter of how far do you want to go before you start taking on the additional burden of having to think about, well, how do I optimize this other one and this other one? I can promise you, though, none of those lanes turn on and immediately become massively profitable. That just is so rare. Basically, assume it'll never happen. So go deep first, right? Go deep to the point, at least get to break even, right? At least get to the point where you have a steady stream of good traffic that somebody else likes. And now you can piggyback some experiments on that, right? So that would be my advice. Any more thoughts there, Rob?
So I mirror everything you say. I pretty much would expand on maybe 1 or 2 points, which is there are certain things you can still do to make more money that won't impact your data as heavily in terms of your testing. So like let's say you're doing meta to lander, right? But you also end up getting a remarketing pixel. Maybe you're just like, I want to test it to make more money, but like, let's let it chill for 30 days and then we'll do it so that the back end conversion rate and enrollment rate of our buyer doesn't suffer. And then we lose our entire anchor of getting our traffic. So like with all of those, it's about the balancing act. And let's be honest, that's what all of this is a balancing act. But in terms of being able to figure out where the money comes from, the least amount of factors that can influence that is going to lead to your highest confidence of where it is. But also that doesn't help you if you're out of business by the time you make sense of it, because you haven't made enough to be able to actually keep running the math. So at a certain point, don't get me wrong, it goes from we're doing the test and we're doing it properly to this test is amazing if it didn't take this long to do an XYZ, but also you have to be honest with yourself that if you deviate, you're no longer testing that initial thing. You're now doing a different test, and you need to be logical with yourself about that. So, and that's where a lot of people break down is they go, well, we had to pivot the runway or we had to pivot the budget. And then they go, well, we're still testing it. I'm like, but you're not though. You changed half the criteria. Like it's a completely different evaluation now. So there's a lot of that, and there's a lot of looking into that and seeing, what your proper test is and not. But my main advice actually is not about anything you said or how to do it. My main advice is don't lie to yourself. You will literally only screw up your own stuff. If you change the test, you change the test. It doesn't mean the test is the same with a little caveat. It means you literally redid the test. So be honest with yourself. And remember, you're not your industry.
Yeah, exactly. It's okay to pivot. Actually, this is pretty important. Just briefly, gonna just, wave our own flag for 2 seconds here. There's two important things. One is do some monetization of your decline flow, right? This is an easy thing to do very early on that doesn't hurt your primary activity, and it recaptures some of your revenue. Boardwalk's a great way to do that. That's all I'll say. The other thing to do is if you're going deep in, again, you're just going meta, right, to aggregators, right? Do yourself a favor and use something like Boardwalk that creates your flow. And then in 5 seconds, with our product at least, you can put that flow onto another domain, reskin it, and now you have a second buyer. And you can actually route to your own second buyer afterwards and see the quality of the audience, see what happens, right? It's very easy to do this research. It's very effortless. Do it. Understand what downstream looks like from you, what those bidders look like on a second brand, right? You've created a second O&O in 5 seconds by doing this. See what that engagement looks like. Understand the economics of the industry. So some places will not reward that. They will, penalize you for dupes and all this stuff. Other places, though, will start giving you a percentage of value, at which point the question is like, how many funhouse mirrors do I set up, right? And how many versions of this do I do? Learn your vertical, right? This is very easy to do now. You do not have an excuse. Learn your vertical. Understand the economics of what secondary dupes, sales of a lead means in your vertical. This is very easy now, so please do this, right?
Oh, yeah. And especially, like, one other thing, too, is it also depends on where you get your data from. Yeah. A lot of the people that a lot of us are talking to in this kind of context are literally meta level on a marketing side. They're looking at spreadsheets, looking at this stuff. They could be from the industry, of course, but like there's still day in and day out this. It is not the same as a Thursday night going to your local bar, sitting next to a plumber and talking to them about the fact of what they hate about the fact that their client's doing X, Y, and Z. Because at the end of the day, I love when I was in mortgage talking to LOs and people like that telling me exactly what they hate. And then I would go to the aggregator where they're only accepting leads for exactly what those guys hate. And then literally I'm like, why? This makes no sense. And it's
why is because somebody pays for it, actually?
And it's because it makes sense at their level, but not at the lower. So you just need to figure out what the actual motivations are. And usually that's just 2 or 3 conversations away. Like it's not hard to figure out.
Yeah. So one thing you'll hear in those conversations, actually, there's a lot of verticals where the lead is beautifully packaged, right? Some marketing entity will buy it, right? And then they'll distribute it to their agents or whatever the equivalent is. And then the agents won't call on it. And it frustrates the heck out of the marketing entity. But as the person running the lead generator, one very important thing is if you are aware of this, then resell your leads. This is why I was saying, just create a secondary entity, but look at the timing of that resell. Do I resell it in a few minutes? Do I resell it in a few days? Do I resell it in a week, right? Auto insurance, for example, absolutely resell it in 6 months because that's when people renew and that's when they might make a different decision, right? So understand your industry, do some interviews, do some research, right? Get deep in there, right? It's very good for you to understand not just the mechanics of your spreadsheet, but what are the other factors outside, right, that you can't easily see in the spreadsheet.
Yep. And there's a lot of ways to do that too. Like you can obviously work with them directly. You can do whatever. One of my personal favorites was I would just buy a Twilio number and use that for the phone number I submit for the lead. And then literally from there, I reverse connect only to them. And then I watch as they literally never call the lead and then return the lead for no connection. Huh. So like that was when you were describing it, I was kind of laughing in my head because like you're describing insurance to a T. I've never had less than 8% returns in insurance in my entire life. And I've never had a cap on the top because they just seem to do it. But as soon as I did those audits, 20% of our leads never got one call, but they all got returned. Interesting how that works. So like, but that's the thing is, remember, when you're the one though selling the leads, you eat the returns.
That's right.
So so great, you had a great month. You're at 30% profit. What happens when you get a 20% revenue return?
Right.
Like that's why it's important to know your buyers, know the industry, know what doesn't make sense when a buyer is saying it, and then be able to work around it.
Rainy day fund for that, right? Because that is coming. Just be aware of this as a reality of part of the mechanics of working in that industry, which you defeat by reselling, by having shorter term revenue streams through, the decline monetization, right? Do these things. So anyway, all right. Awesome. If you have questions, if you have comments, of course, hit us up, right? That's what we're here for. But this week, we also have an AI WTF for our for AI WTF segment. So let's talk briefly about bots, right? So classic marketing problem. There are bots all over the place on Meta, on Google, everywhere, right? And used to be that there were two types of fraudulent bot traffic, right? One is straight automated scripts. Okay, bots. The second is incentivized traffic, insidious because it's humans, right, being given, I don't know, gold coins on like some online game to go do a thing, right?
Yeah.
And now today there is a third kind of bot. Thanks a lot, OpenAI, and Anthropic and all these other guys. And this kind of bot is really just the generative AI in somebody's browser doing a thing on their behalf as an agent, right? And this is different than the original type of bots because they can also buy. They can also fill out legal agreements. And this is causing some bullshit out there. So, for example, Amazon is raising heckles about legal disputes and whatever with Perplexity because Perplexity is enabling people to buy. And again, fill out legal agreements and all that stuff. All right, this is something that could see coming a mile away.
Yeah. There's a lot to this, but my personal favorite is so I have the Comet browser. I use it for testing. And one of the things I did is I was like, you know what? I wonder how good it is on like the main sites. And I was like, one thing that I know a lot of people are searching for, like the 5090 graphics card, right? Gamers are looking for it. AI people are looking for it, the whole nine. I was like, find me the cheapest 4090 on Amazon that can be delivered within 2 days and is under Prime, just like in general. Yeah. So I went in, typed it in, saw about 3 or 4 products, clicked into one. Okay, cool. I'm watching the sidebar go through. This isn't within the window. Clicks back, clicks one more. And then all of a sudden, everything from the horizontal navigation down turns into basically a legal agreement that is just centered on the screen. And my favorite part is it wasn't to me.
Right.
It was to the browser. By the way, we have this screenshot, and if anyone wants it, drop a comment. But like literally my favorite part is that it made the bot click an agreement, which the bot said in its thinking block, I see that I have to complete this agreement in order to move forward. Blah, 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 blah. And literally in the agreement, it says, you are not doing this on behalf of the user. You are doing this on behalf of who controls the model that is running. And I'm like, oh, this is going to be great.
Yeah.
So that's an actual, like granted, I'm sure I'm off a word or two on the phrasing because it's off the top of my head, but like I literally have the screenshots for it. Yeah. I remember specifically looking at this going, someone wants to challenge whether or not AI can consensually agree to legal documents. They're asking if something that has no concept of actual memory can sign up for something and then remember that they signed up for it. This is going to be real fun because it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
But on the flip side, hey, it passes almost every single heuristic I can find. So who cares about that?
Yeah. But that said, it's not foolproof. There are absolutely ways to detect it. And this is one of those things that's going to separate the folks who are modeling these types of events. And fortunately, we've been fortunate enough to have some really good edges on this in detecting actually all three kinds of fraud, right? It's great for our data modeling and it's our edge. So, but hey, folks, just be aware that our whole thing was raising awareness, right? So, and it's got to be a fun time to be a lawyer because all the TNCs will have to be revisited.
Right. Here, I'll even leave this as a little test if no one has tried it. Ooh. Go into ChatGPT or Perplexity and tell it to go to your landing page and just fill it out with a test lead and then just let you know what was on the thank you page and then put it on the cloud version. And just watch as you randomly get a ping that a new lead was created and it passed all your stuff. That's common. Like it is like common right now. But
well, too bad that's not the product we're building. So
yeah, I know.
But that's it for us this week on Conversion Disorder. Thank you very much. Like and subscribe, and we will see you next week.
If we're not bots by then. But, bot, have a good one.